The coronavirus pandemic is financially impacting just about everyone, everything, including city governments, and the Coachella Valley, which relies heavily on tourism, is being hit especially hard, impacting some of the services you may depend on.
Tonight, News Channel 3's Peter Dowd takes a closer look at the numbers and breaks down the budgets of every city in the valley.
From police to firefighters to libraries, museums, parks, landscaping, and so much more, the pandemic is taking a financial toll on services throughout the Coachella Valley. I looked at the budgets for each of the valley's 9 cities, and the numbers are staggering. Starting with Palm Springs, the city's main source of revenue is tourism, with roughly half of its $121 million budget generated through hotel bed and sales tax revenue. But with the shutdowns in tourism at a virtual standstill, the city is now facing a potential loss of about $78 million over the next 14 months.
This is like a tsunami of an economic stop.
I spoke with City Manager David Reddy. So what are some of the hard decisions that Palm Springs is now making?
With the coronavirus, in essence, taking all this revenue out of our budget, the city council is going to have to be forced to refocus on what our priorities are. So core services have to remain, but there's a whole other range of things that we're going to have to just look at in a different light. So like, for example, right now we've saved in the last 2 months, we've saved about $10 million in a whole range of non-personnel cuts, savings, positions that we just haven't filled, and other kinds of non-personnel operational savings.
Next, Cathedral City, which has a budget of about $114 million. City officials project a loss of about $7 to $10 million in annual revenue due to the pandemic. In response, the city has frozen any new hirings except in the dispatch center. Travel and non-essential spending has been eliminated, and the city will soon be reviewing other cuts to its budget. Looking at Desert Hot Springs, city officials project a loss of more than $1 million in general fund revenues for this year's budget, and a loss of roughly $780,000 for next year. In response, the city has frozen 6 vacant positions, canceled all travel, and put one-time expenses and projects on hold. In Rancho Mirage, city officials estimate a shortfall between $4 to $6 million through June. The city's current operating budget is about $27 million. City officials say they plan to cover the losses using several reserves the city has accumulated over the years, which total about $72 million. Right now, Rancho Mirage's core services, including public safety, will not be impacted, but the city says it is still reviewing all non-essential expenditures. Taking a look at Palm Desert, the city is projecting a loss of about $11 million from its $60 million budget, as many of its retail stores remain closed.
It impacts us dramatically.
Palm Desert City Manager Lori Alayan says it's impossible for the city to carry on business the same way it did before the pandemic. How is this going to impact Palm Desert?
It's going to impact us in a lot of ways. It's already impacted the way that we do business. We're maintaining our services in a different manner from the way we've provided them in the past. We're more digitally based. We're operating remotely. But it's also going to impact the face of we have in the community. We'll see reimagined special events. We won't be having the same large gatherings that we've had in the past for things like concerts in the park. We'll be addressing our businesses differently. We took $2 million that had been established as incentives to use to encourage businesses to come to Palm Desert and to build new developments. This is going to be used instead to help our existing businesses survive and get by. We're going to be changing the way that we police, the services that we provide from the fire department, as far as the fire marshal goes. It's going to change us in just about every way imaginable.
So this will impact vital services that people depend on.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will actually be losing number of patrol officers and replacing them with community safety officers who can do many of the same services, but do not carry a gun.
In Indian Wells, the city is looking at about $11 million in lost revenue from its $49 million budget through the end of June, including about $3 million in lost tax revenue from this year's cancellations of the BNP tennis tournament. To make up for the losses, the city says it plans to use surplus revenues of nearly $3 million, postpone capital projects, delay its planned donation of $1 million to Eisenhower Health, and reduce operating costs. In La Quinta, the city is facing a roughly $7 million loss to its $59 million budget, driven by hotel closures and a reduction in vacation rentals. I spoke with Finance Director Carla Romero. So what are some of the things the city of La Quinta is now going to have to put on the back burner or not do at all because of the shortfall?
So at this point, what we've determined, we would postpone some capital improvement projects such as our corporate yard. We might have reduced landscaping throughout the city. The wellness center operations may not be to the tune that they used to be, just based on the impacts of COVID-19. Museum library operations may also have reduced capabilities. We are certainly evaluating the ability to utilize City Hall and other facilities for the public. We're currently reviewing the law enforcement services and collaboratively trying to find out if there's any possible reductions without affecting service levels.
So this is going to have a big impact on La Quinta.
It certainly has an impact. We're trying to mitigate it as much as possible and really focusing on consulting services that we can reduce. It will definitely mean that employees have to carry a little bit more of the burden for the coming year.
Taking a look at Indio, where the Coachella and Stagecoach music festivals were postponed, the city is projecting a loss of about $12 million to its $78 million budget. City officials say they plan to address the shortfall by deferring capital projects, curbing some operational expenses, postponing the filling of some vacant positions, and utilizing its reserves. And finally, the city of Coachella, which has a budget of about $24 million. City officials say they expect a loss of more than $1 million in sales tax through the end of the year, which will be covered by general fund reserves. Further losses continue to be accounted for. Of course, all these numbers could change depending on how long this pandemic lasts. But one thing is certain, even after everything reopens, every city in the Coachella Valley will be financially impacted. For the I-Team, Peter Doubt, News Channel 3.
Do you have a tip you would like the I-Team to investigate? Well, tell us about it. Email us at iteam@kesq.com or call the KESQ newsroom.